Diane Fiogason, who joins us. Diane, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm excellent, Diane. Your young son, Cannen, is now 7 years old, and he's been at the Stollery over 3 times. He's another guy who had open heart surgery when he was only 2.5 months old. Kind of take us through the whole process on how you got to the Stollery and how it went.
Well, it started right after birth. An uneventful pregnancy, no indication there was any problems. And then he was born with a hole in his heart. Well, no. He was born with a fused valve. So the hole in his heart that all babies are born with started to close, usually within 6 to 24 hours, and that's when they noticed that Cannen was in trouble. He started to turn blue because he wasn't getting oxygen because his heart was not working properly. So he was rushed out of my room to the special care nursery here at Foothills, and I didn't understand what was going on at the time. They were talking about SATs at 60 and working feverishly, and all I could think is, I need to feed him. That'll make it all better, because that was my mentality as a new mom, right? And next thing I know, he's going to Edmonton via air transport, and I couldn't go with him.
Yeah, that's got to be tough, Diane. Maybe speak to that part of it. How lucky Edmontonians are to have a facility like this right here. I mean, when you're under the stress of this kind of situation that's bad enough to begin with, to have any kind of separation or to have to leave familiar surroundings in your home area, that just adds to it, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, I was discharged. I guess he was flown out at about 16 hours old, and I was discharged to go home and head up myself. But yeah, going home without a child, like I've had 2 kids before him, so I knew that this was not the way it was supposed to be, and it was so surreal and hard to handle. But also, I'm just thinking, oh my God, I have to get to my baby. So we packed feverishly. You have to make arrangements. Like, there's emergency things up there, like the Ronald McDonald House, but it's hard to get into sometimes. We managed to stay in a hotel where we got it discounted, and I don't even remember through what now, because it was so many years ago, but we got a lot of help. I was a single mom going through school at that time. So my mom was with me, and she paid up front, but we got lots of help, thankfully. And the Stollery was amazing to us. It was home away from home for quite a while, sometimes, a few trips.
Now, Cannen is 7 years old now, and he's doing great. But you mentioned, at 16 hours he was flown here. Then he had his first open heart surgery at 2.5 months, correct?
Yeah, his first open heart was at 2.5 months, but he also had a surgery at 10 days old to prolong that first open heart, just to make him bigger and stronger. So he had a shunt put in where they went in through the side of his rib cage and put a shunt to bypass that fused valve so he could have normal oxygenated blood going through his body.
And you're living in Calgary now, and so there was no hospital in Calgary that could do what they could do here at the Stollery.
No, I didn't get that. I mean, we had a cardiologist come see him, and she's like, well, he's got to go to Edmonton for a simple procedure is what we thought at the time. And I'm like, well, why can't you do it here? Like, I just didn't get it. And she's like, we just don't do that here. It's the surgeons and stuff up there. And she basically herself told me they work miracles up there.
How much did you know, being in Calgary, how aware were you, if any, of the Stollery before young Cannen had to come here?
No clue. No idea. All I'd heard of was the Children's, and I lived in Vancouver before, so I knew of the BC Children's Hospital. That's about all I knew of.
And that's kind of amazing. I'm guessing, for people, and that's what we're talking to a lot of our listeners out there. Obviously, it's a huge benefit to Edmontonians, but it's everyone in northern Alberta and obviously even down south in Calgary. And you know what? It is a leading facility. And if there wasn't the Stollery in Edmonton, you're living in Calgary, I'm guessing then maybe they would have had to flown your son all the way to Vancouver, and then who knows what can happen.
Or even Toronto.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And things changed down there to this point in the years since your son was born. Have the facilities no better down there now?
Well, no, I think because that's just the level of the Children's Hospital, right? They have the cardiologists worked, I think, their ability, but they're not the surgeons like Dr. Rebecca and Dr. Ross are up there.
Right.
They do minor things, like Cannen's had minor angiograms and stuff done down here, and he's monitored down here, but if there's a problem, a major problem, critical, like we were in a couple times, then it's off to Edmonton we go.
Diane Fiogason joins us. Her young son Cannen was here when he was only 16 hours old, and here he is now 7 years old. What's the prognosis for him long term? Is he just a normal, healthy 7-year-old boy?
Yeah, for the most part, yeah. He gets checkups every 2 years now, which that's a really good thing. And he's not on any medication. He loves sports. I don't know how that's going to fare for him because his heart still isn't perfect, and it never will be. Mm-hmm. But he wants to be a wrestler. He loves hockey, baseball, anything to do with sports. He's acting it out. And
Diana, and this might be a tough question, but you mentioned he's your third child, and you knew right away that obviously this was different and things aren't going well for it. And for the parents out there, can you at all explain the feeling of hopelessness and then at the same time just the feeling of relief when you come into a place like the Stollery and realize, the only reason my son's here is because of the Stollery?
Yeah, well, I can't really say if I had hopelessness. It was just so surreal. Like, I just didn't feel like it was really happening. And I think that's how I survived it, was living in denial. Because here's this big 8-pound, 9-ounce baby in the NICU with all these teeny little preemies. And all I could look and think is, well, he's not that sick. Because look at the size of him and look at them. Like, I couldn't wrap my head around what, it was a pretty minor heart condition for what it could have been. Like, I've met a lot of other babies through this journey that are in way worse shape than Cannen. He just kind of made it a little tougher than it had to be. But, so that's how I survived, was just denial. Like, he really wasn't as sick as he was. Now I know different. I'm a nurse, and I know
one of the things
I'm glad
I
I wasn't at the time, let's just say that, because it was easier. Yeah. And of course I worried when he went through the surgeries. They were like nail-biting times, just waiting those what felt like hours and hours and hours on end. But once he came out fine, it was always such a relief.
You had me thinking about the part that happens outside of the surgical theater and outside the wards when you talk about nail-biting time. Talk about how important it is to have professionals like they have at the Stollery who can also deal with mothers and fathers and family members who are worried, sick, under strain, and that just all adds to a very tough situation to begin with, to have the right people to help hold your hand and take you through it.
Yeah, we had a great social worker that was there any time to listen to us, and she helped us with everything, accommodations, food, money, everything. Like, she was great. The nurses were really good. I got close to a few that I still stay in touch with, and if we ever come to Edmonton, we pop in and say hi and visit if they're around. You make some real lifelong relationships, and the Stollery will always have a special place in my heart. Like, down here, I know the rivalry between Calgary and Edmonton, but I don't. I love Edmonton. I don't. So many good things happened for us up there. I mean, yes, it was always stressful under the circumstances, but Cannen always left better.
Diane,
I love Edmonton.
And I can totally understand that. You mentioned, are you a nurse now because of Cannen? Did that kind of inspire you to want to help people, or were you planning on doing that anyway?
I just changed my focus from teacher to nurse, and I was upgrading, though, so I wasn't actually in the nursing program yet. I was just getting the last few prereqs that I needed. It definitely solidified that, and I swear I learned a good chunk of my nursing sitting at his bedside, because the nurses answered all my questions. They told me what all the meds were for and what they did. And it's eventually I'd like to work in a NICU or a PICU, but I want to wait till I have older children before I go that route.
Well, Diane, thanks for sharing your story with us. Congratulations on Cannen being healthy at 7 years old. I'm sure it sounds like the most stressful times are behind you, and that's all because of the Stollery. So thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
Diane Fiogason, there you go. The Battle of Alberta doesn't happen when it comes to real life.